Your body may be asking for something you almost never give it. Not another capsule, not another strict meal plan, not another powdered drink with a label full of promises. Something older, something alive, something people kept in jars, crocks, barrels, cold cellars, clay pots and kitchen corners, long before anyone used the word microbiome. A spoon of sour cabbage, a glass of kefir, a bowl of miso broth, a crunchy pickle that was not soaked in vinegar but changed slowly in brine, a slice of real sourdough, a strange soybean dish called natto that stretches into sticky threads and looks, at first, like it should not be food at all. And here is the twist. Fermented foods are not just foods that went sour. They are foods that were changed by living microbes. Bacteria and yeasts broke down sugars, softened fibers, created acids, released new flavors, changed texture, and in some cases made nutrients easier for the body to use. Your tongue notices the sourness. Your gut notices much more. Inside you, right now, there is a living world. Trillions of microbes live mostly in your digestive tract. Some help break down food. Some help train parts of the immune system. Some produce compounds that speak to your gut lining, your metabolism, and even your nervous system. That means your digestion is not just a pipe. It is more like a crowded city. A city with workers, visitors, troublemakers, repair crews, messengers, and neighbourhoods that change depending on what you feed them every day. So when your belly feels heavy after meals, when bloating appears after ordinary food, when your energy drops after lunch, when your cravings get louder at night, when your skin looks dull, when your digestion feels slow, the answer is not always to punish yourself with less food. Sometimes the missing piece is different food. Food with life, food with acid, food with fibre, food with texture, food that has been transformed instead of just manufactured. Now let's be honest right away. Fermented foods are not medicine. They do not cure every gut problem. They do not replace a doctor. If you have serious digestive disease, immune problems, histamine intolerance, severe reflux, kidney disease, liver disease, food allergies, a weakened immune system, or you take medication, talk with a qualified professional before making big changes. And if a fermented food makes you feel worse, do not force it just because someone online called it healthy. Your body gets a vote. For many people, though, adding the right fermented foods slowly and in small portions can be one of the simplest ways to bring complexity back to the plate. That word matters. Complexity. A lot of modern food is strangely flat. Soft bread, sweet drinks, processed snacks, sterile meals. The same breakfast every morning, the same few ingredients every week. Not much fibre, not much sourness, not much bitterness, not much for the microbes to work with. The gut is like a garden. Give it the same weak soil every day and the garden becomes poor. Give it variety, fibre, plant colour, sour notes, slow food, and small amounts of living ferments, and the whole environment begins to change. Not overnight, not like a miracle trick, like soil recovering, slowly, then noticeably. The first fermented food to know is sauerkraut. Real sauerkraut is not cabbage with vinegar poured over it. Traditional sauerkraut is cabbage and salt, packed tightly under its own brine and left long enough for lactic acid bacteria to do their work. Those bacteria naturally live on the cabbage. When the cabbage is salted, pressed down and kept away from air under brine, they begin to break down sugars and create lactic acid. That acid gives sauerkraut its sharp taste. The cabbage changes completely. It becomes sour, crisp, bright, and more interesting than plain cabbage ever was. But the word real is important. Many jars on store shelves are pasteurized. They still taste sour. They can still be food. But heat can kill the live cultures, so they are not the same as raw, refrigerated sauerkraut with active bacteria. Look for words like raw, unpasteurized, refrigerated, or live cultures. And start small. 1 tablespoon with a meal, not a huge bowl because you watched one video and decided to become a cabbage warrior by dinner. That is how people get bloated and blame the sauerkraut. Sauerkraut works best as a side note on the plate. A spoon beside eggs, a forkful with potatoes, a little next to beans, fish, meat, grains or roasted vegetables. The sourness cuts through heavier food. It wakes the mouth. It makes the meal feel less flat. For many people, that is the first gift of fermented food. It brings taste back. Not sweetness, not salt alone, taste with a little bite. Now kimchi. Kimchi is sauerkraut with a louder voice. It does not politely sit in the corner. It walks into the room with garlic, chili, ginger, cabbage, radish, salt, and that deep sour heat that makes your tongue pay attention. Kimchi comes from Korean food tradition, and there are many versions. Some are based on Napa cabbage, some use radish, some include seafood ingredients, some are mild, some are fiery enough to make you blink before the second bite. Kimchi brings fermented vegetables plus plant compounds from garlic, chili, ginger and other ingredients. It has been studied for effects on gut bacteria, metabolic markers and immune-related pathways, though the effect depends on the type, portion size, salt level and the rest of the diet. That last part matters. No single food can rescue a poor pattern. A spoon of kimchi beside real food is different from eating kimchi after a day of sugar, soda and nothing else your microbes can actually use. Kimchi can be salty, it can be spicy, it can trigger reflux in sensitive people. Some people with histamine issues react to fermented foods in general. So treat it like a spark, a tablespoon beside rice, a few bites with eggs, a little in a bowl with vegetables and protein. One sharp note that changes the whole meal. Kimchi teaches a lesson modern eating often forgets. Digestion likes contrast. Rich food needs sourness. Heavy food needs sharpness. Soft food needs crunch. A meal without contrast may fill you, but still leave you strangely unsatisfied. Kefir is another world entirely. No crunch, no chili, no cabbage, just a sour, creamy, drinkable ferment that looks simple until you understand what made it. Traditional milk kefir is made with kefir grains. These are not grains like wheat or rice. They are living clusters of bacteria and yeasts that look like little pale pieces of cauliflower. They ferment milk sugar and create a tangy drink with a complex microbial community. For some people, kefir is easier to tolerate than regular milk because part of the lactose is broken down during fermentation. But if you have a true milk allergy, dairy kefir is not for you. If lactose gives you trouble, start carefully or consider water kefir or non-dairy versions. Kefir can be a gentle daily food for one person and too much for another. Again, your body gets a vote. The mistake is buying a sweetened bottle and believing the label more than the ingredients. Plain kefir with live cultures is one thing. A sugary dessert drink wearing a wellness costume is another. Read the label. If sugar is high, your gut may be getting 2 messages at once. Here are microbes, and here is a sweet load you did not need. Kefir can be taken in small amounts, a few sips, half a glass, mixed with oats, berries, nuts or seeds, blended into a simple smoothie that is not secretly ice cream. If your gut has been living on processed food for years, do not suddenly pour in a large glass every morning and expect applause. Start with one instrument, not the whole orchestra. Yogurt is the familiar one, so familiar that many people barely think about it. They grab a cup from the store, see fruit on the label, read a word like active and assume they did something good for their gut. Maybe, maybe not. Real yogurt is milk fermented with cultures such as Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Streptococcus thermophilus. Some yogurts include additional probiotic strains, but many flavoured yogurts are loaded with sugar, syrups, sweet fruit mixtures, starches and thickeners. That does not make them evil. It makes them dessert adjacent. Plain yogurt is a different food. You can add berries, cinnamon, nuts, seeds, or a small amount of honey if you need sweetness. You can also use it in savoury food with cucumber, garlic, herbs, olive oil and a pinch of salt. That one shift changes everything. The moment yogurt stops trying to be candy, it becomes useful again. Greek yogurt can bring more protein, though the live culture content depends on the product. Some yogurts are heat treated after fermentation, some are not. Some are rich and simple, some are just sugar in a white cup. The gut does not respond to marketing words, it responds to what you actually eat. Now miso. Miso does not feel like a snack. It feels like something you add quietly and then wonder why the whole bowl tastes deeper. Miso is a fermented paste, often made from soybeans, salt and koji, a culture grown on rice, barley or soy. It can be pale and mild or dark and intense. The flavour is salty, savoury, earthy and deeply satisfying. That savoury depth is called umami. It is the taste that makes broth feel complete. Miso is used in soups, dressings, sauces, marinades and glazes. It contains compounds from soy and fermentation byproducts, but it is also salty. People watching sodium need to use it with care. One cooking detail matters. If you want more of miso's live microbial value, do not boil it hard. Stir it into warm broth near the end. That little habit says a lot about fermented foods. Do not destroy the thing you are trying to receive. Gentle heat, small portions. Respect the food. A spoon of miso can turn warm water, vegetables, tofu, rice, noodles or seaweed into a bowl that feels like it has been cooking longer than it has. Miso does not shout, it deepens. Tempeh comes next, and it changes the rhythm again. Tempeh is fermented soybeans pressed into a firm cake. It originated in Indonesia and is made with a fungal culture that binds the beans together. The texture is chewy, the flavour is nutty, earthy and stronger than tofu. Tempeh matters because fermentation changes the soybean. It can reduce some anti-nutrients and make the beans easier for some people to digest. It also brings protein, fibre and minerals. But tempeh is usually cooked, so do not think of it like raw sauerkraut or kefir. Its value is not only live microbes in the final bite. The value is that microbes transform the food before it reached the pan. This is an important distinction. Some fermented foods are alive when you eat them. Some are transformed by fermentation, then cooked. Both can matter, just not in the same way. Tempeh works well sliced and pan-seared, baked, crumbled into bowls, or marinated with garlic, ginger, soy sauce, vinegar, or herbs. It is especially useful for people who want fermented food that also feels like the main part of a meal, not a spoon on the side, a real protein. Now, natto. Natto is where many people hesitate, and honestly, fair enough. Natto is made from soybeans fermented with Bacillus subtilis. It is sticky, stringy, strong-smelling, and visually strange if you did not grow up with it. You lift the beans and long threads stretch upward like something from a science experiment. Some people love it. Some people need time. Some people try one bite and stare into the distance as if the food just asked them a personal question. But natto is one of the most biologically interesting fermented foods. It contains vitamin K2, especially a form called menaquinone 7, and an enzyme called nattokinase, which has been studied in relation to circulation and blood clotting pathways. That is exactly why caution matters. If you take blood thinners, have a bleeding disorder, are preparing for surgery, or have clotting-related medical conditions, do not casually add natto or nattokinase supplements without professional guidance. Natto is not just strange, healthy food, it is active. If you try it, start small, mix it well, eat it with rice, mustard, green onion, or a little soy sauce if your diet allows. Do not judge it by the first smell. Some foods need a second meeting. Kombucha is easier to like, at least at first. It is fizzy, tart, bright, often sold in beautiful bottles. It feels like a smarter soda. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is soda in a yoga outfit. Kombucha is fermented tea made with tea, sugar and a SCOBY, which stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. During fermentation, microbes consume some sugar and create acids, carbonation and that tangy flavour. A good kombucha can be refreshing. But many bottled kombuchas still contain quite a bit of sugar. Some contain caffeine, some contain acids that can bother reflux, some may contain small amounts of alcohol from fermentation. So kombucha is not something to drink by the litre. A small glass is enough, especially at first. People with reflux, histamine intolerance, pregnancy, liver issues, immune problems or sensitive digestion should be careful. Homemade kombucha also requires clean methods because contamination can happen if the process is careless. Kombucha's real gift is that it may help replace a sweet drink with something more complex. Fizz without the same old soda routine. Sourness instead of pure sweetness. But the label decides whether that is true. Fermented pickles bring us back to crunch. Real fermented pickles are cucumbers fermented in salt brine, not vinegar pickles. Not cucumbers soaked in sharp liquid for flavour. Real fermented pickles develop sourness through lactic acid fermentation. The brine may become cloudy. In real fermentation, that can be normal. The flavour becomes sour, salty, crisp, and deeply satisfying. A fermented pickle beside a heavy meal changes the plate. It cuts through richness. It makes your mouth produce saliva. It adds sharpness where the meal was too soft. But salt matters. If you have high blood pressure, kidney disease, or sodium restriction, portions need attention. If you want live cultures, look for refrigerated, raw, unpasteurized pickles. Shelf-stable pickles are often heat-treated or vinegar-based. Again, not useless, just different. The point is not to become obsessed with labels for sport. The point is to know what you are eating. Kvass feels older than most drinks on a modern shelf. Traditional kvass from Eastern Europe is often made from rye bread, water and fermentation. It is lightly sour, sometimes a little sweet, and mildly fizzy. Beet kvass is another version that became popular among people interested in digestion and old food traditions. Beet kvass tastes earthy, salty, tangy, and nothing like a soft drink. That can be a shock. But it tells an important story. Fermentation was not always luxury. It was survival and thrift. Bread, beets, water, salt, time. Ordinary ingredients transformed because waste was not an option and flavour mattered. Beet kvass may contain beet compounds such as betalains and nitrates along with organic acids from fermentation, but it can be salty and homemade versions require clean methods. If you try it, start with a few sips, not a full glass challenge. Your gut is not impressed by heroic behaviour. Sourdough is probably the most misunderstood fermented food here. People hear fermented and assume probiotic. But sourdough bread is baked. Heat kills the live microbes. So sourdough is not like raw sauerkraut, kefir or kimchi. But that does not make it meaningless. During long fermentation, wild yeasts and lactic acid bacteria work on the flour. They create acids, develop flavour, break down some carbohydrates, and may reduce some compounds that bother digestion in certain people. Real sourdough can feel very different from fast commercial bread. But the word real matters. Some bread is labelled sourdough because it has a sour flavour added. That is not the same as flour, water, salt, starter and thyme. Look at the ingredient list. If the bread is basically soft white bread wearing old-fashioned clothes, your gut may not be fooled. Sourdough teaches patience. Fast bread rises quickly. Sourdough takes time. Sometimes digestion responds better to food that was not rushed before it reached you. Apple cider vinegar is where we need to slow down because the internet has made it ridiculous. Raw apple cider vinegar with the mother is made through fermentation. Yeasts turn sugars into alcohol and bacteria turn alcohol into acetic acid. The cloudy material called the mother contains proteins, enzymes and bacteria. Apple cider vinegar has been studied for possible effects on post-meal blood sugar response, appetite and digestion, but it does not melt fat overnight. It does not detox your organs. It does not replace diabetes care, and drinking it undiluted can irritate the throat and damage tooth enamel. It can worsen reflux in some people. Too much may affect potassium levels or interact with medications. A splash in salad dressing makes sense. A harsh shot every morning because someone online shouted about it does not. Use vinegar like a kitchen acid, not a personality. It belongs in dressings, marinades, sauces and meals where sourness balances fat and sweetness. That is enough. Fermented garlic is a beautiful example of transformation. Raw garlic bites. It burns a little. It fills the room. It refuses to be ignored. Fermentation changes it. Fermented garlic becomes softer, deeper, rounder. The sharpness relaxes. The flavour becomes more complex. Garlic can be fermented in brine, honey or other preparations depending on the method. Garlic contains sulfur compounds studied for heart and immune support, though it remains food, not medicine. Large amounts may irritate the stomach or interact with blood thinners and surgery plans. Fermented garlic shows what fermentation does at a deeper level. It does not erase the food, it reveals another version of it. Raw garlic is a shout. Fermented garlic is a lower voice. Still strong, more patient. You can add it to sauces, dressings, soups, roasted vegetables, rice bowls, beans and savoury meals. A little goes a long way. Fermented carrots and beets are perfect for beginners who do not want to start with something intense. You do not need exotic foods to begin. Carrots, beets, radishes, turnips, cauliflower, green beans and other vegetables can be fermented in brine. Fermented carrots stay crunchy and lightly sour. Beets turn the brine deep red. Radishes become sharp and lively. Cauliflower takes on spices beautifully. These vegetable ferments bring fibre, plant pigments, organic acids, and live cultures if eaten raw and unpasteurized. They also make the plate more interesting. Colour matters. Crunch matters. A meal with only soft textures becomes boring fast. A few fermented carrots next to rice, eggs, potatoes, beans or fish can make the whole plate feel awake. If sauerkraut feels too strong, carrots may be easier. Sweet enough to feel friendly, sour enough to matter, simple enough to start. Aged cheese is more complicated. People want simple answers. Good or bad, eat or avoid, healthy or unhealthy. But cheese depends on the person, the type, the portion, and the rest of the diet. Some aged cheeses are fermented foods made with cultures and thyme. They may contain bioactive peptides and concentrated nutrients. But many cheeses are high in salt and saturated fat. Aged cheeses can also contain histamine or tyramine, which may bother people with migraines, histamine intolerance, or certain medication concerns. So cheese is not a free pass because it is fermented, and it is not automatically a villain. It is a food that needs context. A small amount of aged cheese with vegetables, whole grains, fruit, or a balanced meal is different from eating large portions mindlessly with crackers every night. Your body is not a slogan. Food needs context. Lassi and ayran show another side of fermented dairy. These drinks come from different food traditions. Lassi, common in South Asia, can be salty or sweet, made from yogurt and water. Ayran, common in Turkey and nearby regions, is usually yogurt, water and salt. The useful idea is dilution. Fermented dairy does not need to be thick, heavy and sweet. It can be light, drinkable, savoury and part of a meal. A salty yogurt drink with food is very different from a sugary yogurt smoothie pretending to be breakfast. But salt matters. Dairy tolerance matters. Sugar matters. If you choose lassi, try a plain or lightly spiced version rather than a dessert version. If you choose ayran, watch sodium if needed. These drinks show that fermented foods are not just products with labels. They are cultural foods, born in climates, kitchens, habits and meals that made sense long before anyone printed probiotic on a bottle. Now let's step away from the list, because the list is not the point. The pattern is the point. Fermented foods bring sourness. They bring microbial activity or the results of microbial activity. They bring acids. They bring stronger flavour. They often improve keeping quality. They can change texture. They can make some nutrients more available. They can help restore complexity to meals. But fermented foods work best when paired with fibre. This is the part many people miss. Probiotic foods may bring microbes. Prebiotic foods feed microbes. Prebiotics are fibres and plant compounds found in foods like onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, oats, beans, lentils, apples, green bananas, vegetables and whole grains. If you drink kefir but eat almost no fibre, you are inviting guests and giving them no dinner. You need both, microbes and their food. Fermented foods and fibre. That pairing is where the gut starts to feel like a garden again. Imagine your gut as a crowded city. Some microbes are workers, some are troublemakers, some are quiet residents, some are temporary visitors passing through after a meal. If your daily food is mostly sugar, low fibre, processed snacks, and the same few ingredients on repeat, the city becomes dull. Fewer neighbourhoods, less resilience, less variety. Then comes one stressful week, one course of antibiotics, one illness, one stretch of poor sleep, and the whole place feels unstable. Fermented foods do not rebuild the city alone. They bring visitors and signals. Fibre builds housing, sleep lowers the noise, movement improves circulation. Less ultra-processed food stops feeding the wrong crowd. That is the full picture, not one jar, a pattern. Now the question everyone wants answered, which fermented food is number one? The honest answer is not the trendiest one. Not always kombucha, not always kefir, not always natto, not the strangest food on the table. The best fermented food is the one you can eat consistently, tolerate well, and pair with real meals. For many beginners, that might be sauerkraut. Why? Because it is simple, affordable, easy to portion, and powerful in a small amount. One spoon can sit beside almost any meal. It brings sourness, fibre, and fermentation without requiring a new recipe. But for someone who cannot tolerate cabbage, it might be yogurt. For someone avoiding dairy, fermented carrots. For someone wanting protein, tempeh. For someone adventurous and medically cleared, natto. For someone who loves soup, miso. That is the key insight. There is no universal champion. There is a right starting point for your body. And the body tells you, not through hype, through response. Less bloating or more, better stool or worse, calmer digestion or discomfort, more satisfaction after meals or stronger cravings, better energy or a crash, skin calmer or irritated. You have to listen. Now here is how to begin without overwhelming your gut. Choose one fermented food, just one. Eat a small amount with a meal. Do it for several days. Watch. If it feels good, continue. If it feels too strong, reduce the amount. If symptoms get worse, stop and consider whether you may have histamine intolerance, reflux, IBS, SIBO, or another issue that needs guidance. Do not add sauerkraut, kefir, kimchi, kombucha, vinegar, and natto all in the same week because you got excited. That is not gut care. That is a microbial traffic jam. Start with one lane, then slowly add another. Your gut likes rhythm more than drama. Timing matters too. Many people do better with fermented foods during meals, not alone on an empty stomach. A spoon of sauerkraut with lunch, a little kimchi with dinner, yogurt with oats, kefir with breakfast, miso in soup, pickles beside a heavier meal. Food buffers acidity. The meal gives context. The body can respond more calmly. Do not heat live ferments if your goal is live microbes. Raw sauerkraut goes on the plate after cooking. Kimchi can be cooked for flavor, but if you want live cultures, eat some raw. Miso goes into warm soup at the end. Kefir stays cold or room temperature. Yogurt should not be boiled if you want live cultures, but cooked fermented foods still count in another way. Sourdough, tempeh, cooked miso dishes, and fermented sauces still matter because fermentation changed the ingredients. Some fermented foods are alive, some are transformed. Both can be useful. Now safety. If a homemade ferment grows fuzzy mould, smells rotten in a way that makes your body say no, turns strange colours, becomes slimy when it should not, or makes you unsure, do not be brave. Throw it away. Fermentation is controlled transformation. Rot is uncontrolled breakdown. They are not the same. Use clean jars. Enough salt when salt is required. Clean hands, clean tools. Vegetables kept under brine when needed. Reliable recipes. Do not improvise wildly with fermentation until you understand the rules. Microbes are not decorations. They are alive. Treat the process with respect. People with histamine intolerance may react to fermented foods. Aged cheese, kombucha, sauerkraut, kimchi, wine-like ferments, and fermented soy can be higher in histamine. Symptoms can include headaches, flushing, itching, congestion, digestive upset, or anxiety-like feelings. People with severe IBS or SIBO may feel worse with some fermented foods. People with reflux may struggle with acidic foods like kombucha, vinegar, kimchi, and pickles. People with high blood pressure or kidney disease should watch salty ferments. People with weakened immune systems should be careful with raw, unpasteurized foods. People on blood thinners need caution with natto because of vitamin K2 and nattokinase. This is not fear, it is personalization. A food can support one person and irritate another. That does not make the food bad, it means bodies are different. Now imagine a simple day. Breakfast, plain yogurt with oats, berries and walnuts. Lunch, eggs or beans with a spoon of sauerkraut on the side. Dinner, warm soup with miso stirred in at the end. That is already a very different day from sweet cereal, white bread, snacks and soda. Not perfect, not extreme, just different. More fibre, more sourness, more protein, more texture, more microbial story. Or another day, sourdough toast with avocado, a small glass of kefir, rice with kimchi, tempeh with vegetables, fermented carrots beside dinner. Again, nothing dramatic, but the pattern changes. This is how real food transformation happens, not through one heroic decision, through repeated small upgrades that the body can actually live with. Now we come back to the beginning. Your body may be craving fermented foods because it is tired of sterile meals, tired of sweetness without depth, tired of softness without fibre, tired of processed food that gives energy quickly but leaves nothing for the inner garden. Fermented foods bring back something ancient: sourness, time, microbial work, flavour that cannot be rushed. A relationship between food and living organisms. That does not make them magical, it makes them human. For most of history, fermentation was not a trend. It was survival, preservation, flavour, and daily intelligence. People fermented cabbage because winter was long. They fermented milk because fresh milk spoiled. They fermented soy because beans changed with time. They fermented dough because bread became better. They fermented tea because taste evolved. They fermented vegetables because the harvest could not be wasted. Now many people are rediscovering what old kitchens already knew by experience. Food changes when it is given time, and sometimes we do too. So here is your simple starting point. This week, choose one fermented food, not 15, one. Real sauerkraut, plain kefir, plain yogurt, kimchi, miso, fermented pickles, sourdough, tempeh, whatever fits your life. Eat a small amount with a real meal. Watch your body. No drama, no challenge, no punishment, just curiosity. If your digestion feels better, continue slowly. If it does not, adjust. If you have medical concerns, ask for guidance. The goal is not to become perfect. The goal is to bring life back to the plate, one spoon at a time. Now tell me in the comments, which fermented food do you already eat, and which one are you willing to try next? Sauerkraut, kefir, kimchi, miso, kombucha, sourdough, natto, or something else. And if you want more simple food videos that explain what your body may be asking for, subscribe to the channel, because the next change your gut needs may be much easier than you think.